to my mom's house for about a month and a half, and then I got a job in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, nice.
Doing accounting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And you've had a very interesting career in that you've kind of worked at a lot of the big companies.
Yes.
With as much experience as you've had, when did you decide that you wanted to move on to the next company? Like, was there a moment when you're like, I've learned all I can here, now I'm going somewhere else? Or when did you decide to take your opportunities and go somewhere else at each of these junctures?
Good question. Here's the thing, and again, I'm going to be real with you. There were the money. So
sure.
there was a situation where, well, one thing, I was at one firm, and in the early 2000s, that's when Enron and MCI and Global Crossings, all these other companies started going down because of these corporate malfeasance and accounting frauds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Congress enacted PCAOB and then the Dodd-Frank Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had the Public Company Oversight Committee Board, whatever the heck it is called, but they invested a crap ton of money into that in response. And so they were hiring aggressively. So to answer your question, the accounting industry around that time, people in accounts and also in tax, because there's a tax component to publicly traded companies as well as their financial statements. The market was insane. Like, it didn't matter. I got calls every other day from recruiters, from companies, that's before LinkedIn. And they're just like, they knew where you worked, or someone knew, oh, I know this guy works here as a CPA, whatever. Yeah. My phone was ringing off the freaking hook. And they're like, we'll give you a $10,000 signing bonus, but pay, it was like that. And you're like, I'm staying here and I'm not really too happy. And you're going to give me a 25% raise. Yeah. And some other stuff and some perks and all. I was like, okay, I'm out. So that's what precipitated a lot of the movement earlier on.
Okay.
And then some of it too was just personalities and understanding. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I wanted to. I didn't have any direction for me, work wise.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a direction as to where I wanted to go. The things that I was kind of interested in, but it's kind of hard to get on those teams. And so I was like, well, maybe I could try my lot somewhere else.
Yeah. Good. So also in your journey, you have written a couple of books. So I'm looking at Start Me Up, the No Business Plan business plan. What made you decide to want to write a book and to write this book specifically?
So, see, that's another. So that's one of the. Remember I told you earlier this.
Yeah.
I have these 3 stories in which massive amounts of action, all other stuff led to success. Mm-hmm. So one of them was basketball. One of them was going to college, and becoming a citizen. Mm-hmm. Right, kind of go together. And the third one was his book.
Excellent. I'm glad I've hit all 3 of them.
You did, man. I knew we were going to get there. I knew when we booked this call, this was going to happen. But that's just the kind of podcast and interviewer you are.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened in this particular case, funny enough, in the late 90s, I was writing business plans for startups and people who had ideas. And I did a startup plan for an econ class. And this is in 1997. And basically the model was, back then I couldn't afford to buy all my books in college, which was insane. Yeah. Like a textbook was like $600. That's insane. And then they changed it next year, next semester. I was furious. So I couldn't afford a lot of this crap. And I said, well, part of the reason is there's too many people in the middle of the transaction. And so one, there's all the prices are artificially created, and as a result, they can be artificially inflated. So what I realized is that the publisher knows they can get because they get information from whoever the author is, or whoever the people are who has a syllabus, who tells the publisher to change these pages. So there's conversation between those two. Everybody else in the middle is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. So my idea at the time was to create distribution hubs all over the country for college textbooks. Professors submit syllabuses for books that they want to stock or whatever, and then the distribution place holds it, and then students can order those books directly from the distribution set or from the company, and depending on where it's located, those books get sent to you a lot quicker. Postage is a lot less because it's closer. It could be on trucks. This before Amazon was doing anything else other than books. And so that was kind of the premise of the idea. I wrote the business plan, presented it. I got a B. And then my professor laughed. He said, "There's no way this is going to happen. It's a bunch of nonsense, da 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 da." And I was like, and he was kind of discouraging, so I didn't really pursue it. And then maybe 2.5 years later, there was E-Follett, Varsity Books, 2 or 3 other ones that all went public with hundreds, tens of millions, of 30 million, multiple millions of dollars, 9, 10 figures. And then I sent my professor an email because I'm kind of petty. So I sent my professor an email and I said, remember you told me all this nonsense, da da da. I listed a couple companies and he wrote back, "You were right. I'm sorry." But that goes to show you that if you see something in life, in your business, and people who are listening in your life, in your business, and what you're doing, and you feel there's conviction behind it, the average person is not going to understand what you're doing, and it's not their fault, right? The mistake you're making is you think you need to get validation from them. Now, if I'm speaking to somebody else that has experience or has logistical experience or something like that, that's kind of part of what I'm trying to do, and they give me advice, then I'm going to listen to that to some degree. But they may not have the same vision or the same vision that I have, right? If Steve Jobs listened to everybody, he wouldn't have made the iPad. He wouldn't have made the iPod. He wouldn't have done any of these things because they told him, be cool, just make a computer, for creative people, and don't worry about anything else. People wouldn't be standing outside in the line to buy a phone that hasn't changed. Like that's what's happening right now. So his vision was on another level. So I know people like to quote Steve Jobs a lot, but to my point, that's kind of the idea. So I'm telling you that story to set up how I got to the book. So I've been writing business plans for a while, and what I realized is, and I pitched a lot of ideas too. I almost got a couple ideas funded. I used to go on the road shows, venture road shows, fly to the South, fly to the West, speak to people locally, venture meetings, pitch me. I did all that crap. And one of the things I realized is that nobody ever reads anything that you present them. So here's a perfect example. So I remember one pitch I was giving. I brought my business plan with my partner, which was about maybe 60, 70 pages long, which was, 59 pages too long. And then he opened it up to the table of contents. One of them was a bunch of VCs. He opened up to the table of contents, looked at it, went one page, ripped it out, went to another page, ripped it out, went to another page, ripped it out, went to another page, ripped it out. And then he gave me back the rest. And I was like, what? And then he explained, it's like, I don't need all the other stuff is just fluff. And it's like, no disrespect to you, but we see a lot of these. It's the same revolutionary, changing the game, like all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
All I want to know is, does your idea or your company solve a problem? How big is that problem? Is it enough for it to scale? Is it like a $10 million problem, or is it a $100 billion problem? What are you going to be charging price wise? Is that enough? Is a price high enough to fund your operations? Or is it a situation where you have to start raising money? Now, when I say that, I think about Uber, I think about Lyft, I think about, these meal delivery companies. They're all going to suffer in the next couple of years. Mainly for that particular reason, because they're not sustaining. Right. I get a message from Lyft every other week that says 50% off on your rides. You know who's paying for that? The person who invested in Lyft.
Yeah, exactly.
The stockbroker, the plumber in New York, the cop in Illinois, like they're paying for my ride right now, half of my ride. Yeah. So not the ride sharing. So and then another thing was like another part the venture capital person I mentioned was the importance of having systems. How are you going to deliver your product and your service? Have you got that down? And then last was the sales. How are you going to sell? Are you going to sell? Are you doing the old Web 1.0 model where we just get a bunch of users and then we hopefully as a freemium and then hopefully convert them? And so I was like, holy shit, this guy is making a lot of sense. And then I kept this lesson in my head for years as I moved on to other ideas and I started working. And then people would ask me for advice on business plans. And I said, I don't want to write them anymore. And I said, this has to be a better way. And that's what led to the book. Sorry, we have no business plan. Funny enough with that, when I told you earlier about my story, is I pitched over 250 different literary agents the concept. One kind of listened to me. Most of them said no. Actually, like 99% of them said, go to hell, in nice words. And then what I realized after, I had two friends. I have two friends of mine, but one of which is a star of a TV show called Hoarders
Mm-hmm.
on A&E. He's one of the cleaning consultants. Now he has a new show on PBS called
Okay.
Legacy something or other. But anyways, Matt Paxton, very good friend of mine. We always talk ideas back and forth. We've been doing it for 10 years. And we've been trying to work together on some TV thing, media, whatever. But great guy. So he was still in the middle of the show. He was supposed to have another show that was going to be produced by a couple of big producers, like a talk show kind of ish type of thing. So we're talking on the phone, and I'm telling him, I go, dude, I'm so discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a literary agent who was interested in me. They got my proposal. They tried to sell it to one of the largest business book publishers. They said yes, and then 2 weeks later they said no. And at that time, so I call him after that. I'm so sick of this. Literally, part of my French. I go, I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah.
I just, this is hard. Like I'm just gonna say fuck it and just move on. And then he said, you know what? The same thing happened to me with a lot of different things. But what I realized is if I just kept being patient and staying focused on what I was trying to do, someone said no to you, it ends up turning around eventually to what you want. I was like, okay, I'll give more time. And then literally 2 days later, literary agent calls me and says, we have a publishing deal. Business book publisher out of New York, New Jersey wants to publish your book. They gave me the advance I want. And said, that's the great news. I go, what's the bad news? And they said, well, you have to write this book in 3 months. And I said, damn. I was like, hey, you know what? I said, you know what? I spent 4 years trying to get this, like 2.5 to 4 years trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
3 months is nothing. So this is in the summer. I'm busy working 12 hours a day. I'm working 12 hours a day for a client. And then when I come home at about 9 o'clock at night, I eat, I write until 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get up and do it again every weekday. On the weekends, I wrote for 8 hours a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Pressfield always talks about this, and I think The War of Art. I think he said that. It's like resistance is like your enemy.
Right.
And he said the professional gets up and does whatever he or she's supposed to do every single day. And the amateur does it when they feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was given an opportunity to write a book and get it published traditionally and get it published, have it in bookstores, right? That's a surreal ass moment when you walk into a bookstore and your book is there. Mm-hmm. I went to New York to do a television appearance on MSNBC or Fox or something, and I forgot my book. And so I went to a Barnes and Nobles, I think in Union Square, and they had a copy of my book, and I bought it. And the woman who's checking me out, because you see I'm on the cover of it, she's looking at the book and looking at me and looking at the book, and I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, I'm not that guy. I really forgot to bring books up to this or whatever. And, it looks kind of crazy when I do that. But,
yeah.
But to my point is I put a lot of work and a lot of effort into this, and I had to put a lot of focus into this. And so seeing this come to fruition is another level. It not only being a bestseller on Amazon, it ended up being published overseas in Indonesia. I've never been to Indonesia. Mm-hmm. I sold a lot of copies in Indonesia, and it was translated to Indonesian, and I've never been there. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's to a deeper point, it's focus, consistent action, massive action, identifying what you're trying to do and then creating the steps to get there. And then last but not least, it's your responsibility, everybody's responsibility, like what you're doing with this podcast. You're trying to get something out to the world. This is a legacy. Like something were to happen to you or me or whatever tomorrow, these things will exist in perpetuity. It's out there, right? And there's so many people who sit at home who are very talented and gifted, but someone at the wrong time came, got in their way and told them some nonsense, told them a story that they were sold on, and they're hiding their gift from the world.
Yeah. So you've kind of spoken a lot about this, but I want to ask this specific question. The idea about fear. So, you're someone who definitely is a doer, and you go out there and you find what you want and you really put your, lean into it. But what about those times when you do feel fearful or apprehensive? And it's clear that you don't let that hold you back, but how do you get to that point where fear is no longer a factor?
I'm scared all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always scared. And most people who've achieved great things, they're scared too.